And it is really important that we reach some of these longer fasts, even though there are benefits to shorter fasts. Once we reach at least about 3 days of water only fasting, we trigger something called autophagy. And really, what autophagy is, in short, is like an internal vacuum cleaner for our cells. The term autophagy literally means self eating, and it is our body's wonderful capability to go in and clean house at the cellular level. So we certainly want to take advantage of that, but unfortunately, it's pretty darn hard to turn that on. It does require enough of this, what we call hormetic stress, also known as positive stress, to trigger autophagy. So really, really beneficial to get that house cleaning, but you do need to fast for at least about 3 days to turn it on.
Welcome to Linda's Corner, where we bring more hope, healing, and happiness to the world. My name is Linda Bjork, and today we're going to be talking about fasting mimicking. I'm delighted to welcome Renee Fitton. Renee is a longevity dietitian and the director of education at L-NUTRA. You can reach Renee at her website, prolonlife.com, and I'll include that link in the show notes. Welcome, Renee. I'm so glad that you could join with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I think we're going to cover some fun topics that I hope is new and exciting for a lot of your listeners.
Yes, I was thinking the same thing. I had so much fun checking out the website. I had so much fun learning about the benefits of fasting. So just as a quick 30,000-foot overview, because this is going to be new to people, what we're going to be talking about is the benefits of what would be a 5-day water fast. That cycle, 5 days. So that means drinking water, abstaining from food, and also, we're going to be talking about how we can get those same benefits without actually fasting, which is like a win-win scenario. So let's start first, if it's okay, of 5 days. Why 5 days? What is the process that makes this amazing and worth it?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm glad that you started with why 5 days, because when we talk about water only fasting, certainly 5 days sounds a little
Long.
aggressive. Long. How the heck am I going to do that? And it is really important that we reach some of these longer fasts, even though there are benefits to shorter fasts. Once we reach at least about 3 days of water only fasting, we trigger something called autophagy. And really, what autophagy is, in short, is like an internal vacuum cleaner for our cells. The term autophagy literally means self eating, and it is our body's wonderful capability to go in and clean house at the cellular level. So we certainly want to take advantage of that, but unfortunately, it's pretty darn hard to turn that on. It does require enough of this, what we call hormetic stress, also known as positive stress, to trigger autophagy. So really, really beneficial to get that house cleaning, but you do need to fast for at least about 3 days to turn it on.
Isn't that crazy? Okay.
Mm.
So the fasting, and you called it positive stress. So I'm hoping we're going to get into this later, but when our bodies, which are designed to keep us safe and to keep us alive, when our body thinks, oh my gosh, we're in a famine, I'm starving to death, then all of a sudden it shuts everything down and it conserves all of our fat instead of letting it go. In fact, our bodies actually start eating muscles rather than releasing fat, which I think is so rude. But it does things. So somehow we got to do this in a way that our body feels positive stress and feels safe. Like, oh, well, this isn't a bad thing. I'm just taking a break. Sweet. That means I've got some time to start cleaning things up and I'm going to be able to, improve my health. So as we're talking about this autophagy, it's about, when I was reading, it was about the cell regeneration. So cleaning and creating new. And one of the benefits was about aging, helping us to be able to age better so that the cells, rather than doing, kind of the old and busted method, do the fresh and clean and new, the way that it maybe used to be 10 years ago or however many years ago. So do you want to explain about that a little bit more?
Yes, absolutely. So what is so incredible about the process of autophagy, but also all of the other benefits and changes that happen to our body when we go into this fasted state, is that we are able to tackle so many of these root causes of disease. And by working at multiple different levels, we are able to tap into our biological age from a lot of different avenues. Now, let me first start by explaining what the heck biological age is for those of us who are less familiar with that term. Biological age is essentially the age that our cells behave, the way that our body essentially acts and functions, as opposed to the number on your birth certificate or your passport. And it turns out that your biological age can really go either way. It can be older than your biological age, or sorry, your chronological age, or it can be younger than your chronological age. And so certainly we all want it to be younger, because if our body, sure, maybe it says we're 50 on our passport, but if we can make our body behave like it's 35, 40, we're in really good shape. And so there are many different ways through lifestyle change that we can impact our biological age and shift it in the right direction. But what is incredible is that fasting, and specifically fasting mimicking, where we can mimic the benefits of water only fasting but with food, has shown that with just 3 cycles, that's 5 days a month, once a month for 3 months in a row, we are able to reverse biological age by 2.5 years. So that's a grand total of 15 days of intervention, 2.5 years back onto your biological age. It's very, very unheard of in the longevity world, even beyond nutrition changes alone, to see that kind of benefit in that short of a time.
Okay, and you brought up some important things, not only the benefits, but kind of what we expect to see, where it's doing it once is good, but you're doing it as a cycle. So once a month, is that for kind of reparative, or restorative, or are we saying that this is a new lifestyle? We fast 5 days a month, which doesn't sound very fun.
No, the good news is that that is just your introductory protocol. Those 3 months in a row is just how you kick things off and get your body kind of back into the groove of what it was meant to always do, which is take these periods of fasting periodically. Now, once you've done your 3 in a row, once monthly for 3 months in a row, then you're only doing a 5-day fasting mimicking diet every 3 to 4 months. That's it. So if you step
Okay.
back and look at your year, you're doing this max 3 to 4 times a year. That's it.
Okay, so once a quarter, that seems more manageable. Thinking I have to do this every month would be like, whoa, no, thank you. I don't really care what the benefits are because I think that the, how hard it is not going to be worth it. Okay, all right, so we can do this. And part of doing this actually helps you feel like, wow, I did something hard. I can do hard things. And that's actually one of the benefits, the takeaways, as I was reading through some of the just the mental benefits, the mental and emotional kind of a thing. And there were some others, and I thought I wrote them down, and I'm not seeing my notes. So dang, maybe you can tell me.
I've got a lot just off the top of my head of all of these incredible benefits, but I love that you brought up some of that behavioral aspect, and I'll touch on that really quickly because when we look at, yes, this motivation shift, we see some pretty incredible changes even beyond your nutrition and beyond some of those biomarkers that we look at. So one of the coolest behavioral studies that I have seen with fasting and fasting mimicking is a study that was done in individuals with type 2 diabetes, where they did the fasting mimicking diet. So part of the group did the fasting mimicking diet once a month for 6 months. The other group did a healthy diet every single day for 6 months. And both groups, yes, they saw some weight loss. The fasting mimicking diet certainly saw more. The fasting mimicking diet saw patients coming off of their medication, improving their A1C, seeing drastically, and in fact, even 8 times better results in a lot of that. But the coolest part was that on top of that, the fasting mimicking diet group increased their physical activity by 4 hours a week, despite not even being told that they had to do that. And then the regular diet group decreased their physical activity by 6 hours a week, which is really interesting because it kind of makes you think, why would that happen? And some of the thoughts are, well, one, the fasting mimicking diet group, not only did they lose weight, both groups did lose weight, but the fasting mimicking diet group protected their muscle. And you brought that up a little earlier, is that muscle protection piece, which is so critical because it's one thing to lose weight, but if you're losing muscle as part of that weight, you're really setting yourself back as opposed to propelling yourself forward. So that's one piece of the puzzle. Then on top of that, yes, they lost weight, so they feel lighter. So they feel lighter and stronger. They completed a 5-day program. They feel motivated. They feel empowered. They feel good. They also, not to mention, feel cleaner. And on top of that, instead of doing every single day nutrition change, they only had to do 5, which leaves 25 other days to do all sorts of other incredible benefits for your health. And so all of those things together really do have this really empowering behavioral change capability that we've seen in that study, but also even in our surveys of the millions of people that have done fasting mimicking diets so far. So
Okay, that blows my mind because you're talking about a change that was not part of the study. It's
yeah.
just a natural response where people are feeling better, and that their natural response to feeling better is to doing more. And that in and of itself is, I think, fascinating and wonderful. But I'm almost confused that the other group that was eating healthy all the time had a decrease. And I'm trying to figure out, why would that be? I think sometimes we feel, when we're trying to do good and be good with our lifestyle, it can feel maybe restrictive, and we feel maybe even a little bit rebellious, like, everyone's telling me what to do so that I can be healthy, and I don't want to do it, so I'm not going to do this other thing. We have just that natural kind of kickback and fight that we want to be in control of ourselves. So that's so interesting. So are you suggesting that in this particular study, the other 25 days, the participants could eat whatever they wanted?
Yes, exactly right. And in all of the fasting mimicking, and there's over 40 clinical trials now published over the last 25 plus years that this has really come into existence. So there's a lot of research in this space now. And all of them are done with the assumption and the recommendation that people not change their diet outside of that, because we're trying in the studies, of course, to really just understand what the fasting mimicking diet is going to be able to achieve. Now, as a registered dietitian, it would behoove me not to make recommendations on how to improve your nutrition outside of those 5 days. So I certainly am a big proponent for making other lifestyle changes and nutrition changes outside of that. But it is nice to know that the results that we see in the studies don't require you to completely overhaul your diet outside of those 5 days as well.
You know, this piece of information feels like it changes everything. When we very first have this introduction, we're talking about a 5-day water fast, although we're mimicking it, so it's going to be a little easier, but it feels big. It feels big. It feels scary. And as we talk about the benefits, then you can weigh, are these benefits worth the effort that I'm going to be putting into in order to get these benefits? And we all do that. We all weigh that really with every decision that we make. But now, as we get more information, instead of feeling more restrictive, it actually feels more liberating. Like, wow, I can get really big results with making small changes. And I can still enjoy. I can still live life. I love being healthy. I want to be healthy. Healthy is important for everything, but I want to be joyful. And I think that sometimes you can get so rigid in your, I need to eat healthy, that we lose some joy. I want both. I want both.
Absolutely. And in fact, in the world of longevity, having joy and having community and eating meals as a team and doing all of these things that reduce the stress that we feel just on the day to day is so incredibly important to our longevity. So, you have to make sure that you are not sacrificing your joy when you are making also changes for your health.
I love that. Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about weight loss then. We've mentioned it before, but I would really, maybe if you can give me some more background on why, how does this protect my muscles? How is my body comfortable and feeling safe that this is a temporary thing? In fact, this is a good thing, a chance to clean up and to renew and to regenerate, rather than that panic of, oh my gosh, we're in a famine, we're starving to death, we have got to take care of issues and problems. Because that is one of the main problems with dieting. We restrict our calories because we want to, bring in less than we are using. Makes sense. The math is easy. Doesn't work, which is super, super frustrating. So how is that my body going to be on board with this plan?
It's a great question. And in fact, there's a lot of pieces that kind of come into this answer. One thing that is important to note is that when we are in a fasted state, our body is going to respond and say, "Oof, something has changed here." And we need to react to this change with some safety mechanisms. And one of those safety mechanisms is the release of growth hormone. So we see growth hormone increase. And growth hormone is very protective to our muscle. Now, on top of that, in a fasting mimicking diet, we also are adding nutrition. So we are adding carbohydrates, fat, and even a little bit of protein. And all of that helps your body go to those nutrients instead of going to work and unpacking our muscles that give it some of that nutrition. And so giving it an alternative fuel source while also allowing the increase of growth hormone is this beautiful pair that allows for fasting mimicking specifically to be protective. And I do think that that's an important distinction between just water only fasting, where you don't have that nutrition to support that increased growth hormone in the protection.
Oh, I like that. So even though fasting, which is super beneficial, by doing the mimicking fasting, it actually sounds like it can help get even better results because your body feels that layer of safety, like, I'm okay. I can make these changes and I'm safe. That's
Exactly.
amazing.
I
Okay.
will also note on that same jump off point is that when we looked at even creating a fasting mimicking diet, right? Back when this was in its earliest stage, it was done to support individuals who were going through cancer treatment. And they were seeing incredible research on water only fasting in oncology, but there was so much pushback from the medical community on actually using that tool in those patients because of fears for safety and for fears of muscle loss. And so finding this as and developing this as a solution for a very vulnerable population also, I think, should give some comfort to even healthy individuals to leverage this as a safer alternative to water only fasting.
Wow. And so that just bumped it up again. I mean, we're talking about health benefits, but when we're talking about the demographic of people who are fighting for their lives because they're dealing with cancer, it kind of gives a little bit of a hint of the power that is available, that it would even be considered. And so that is very interesting. Well,
Yeah.
let's talk some more about some of these benefits. One of the things that was mentioned was about like menopause, perimenopause, and postmenopause. There are a lot of changes that are going on, hormonal changes, metabolic changes, and how can this specifically benefit this group of women?
Absolutely. This is a topic that is very near to my heart because unfortunately there's just not enough research and in women's health in general, but especially when we start peeling back the fasting research, there isn't too much here. But we do know that there are unique differences in the way that women can and should fast, and also how we respond to fasting. And especially as we enter into perimenopausal years, this is when we start seeing a lot of changes that certainly prompt us to start thinking, okay, I feel like I might have to make some changes to my nutrition. Things just aren't working. The same diet that I was doing for the last 20 years is not seeming to do the same impact as it is now. And so I think that there's a lot of women who kind of immediately start thinking, okay, I'm going to do calorie restriction and I'm going to do this every day. And what we see is that that is a relatively high stress on the body every single day. It also is severely restricting calories and may have a impact on that muscle preservation. And unfortunately, from the moment we hit about 30, our muscle loss increases and increases anywhere from about 3 to 8% a decade. And then once we hit 50, it goes up even more, up to about 10% per decade of muscle loss. So that muscle protection piece becomes very, very important, especially for women and especially over the age of 30. Now, that is something that we've already discussed as an opportunity for the fasting mimicking diet. Another thing that occurs, especially in those perimenopausal years, is a drop in estrogen. And that drop in estrogen is also unfortunately paired with a difficulty in maintaining bone density, a difficulty in maintaining healthy blood sugar levels. Estrogen is so important in so many different areas of our health. And so it's really important that we also are choosing to support our health during this time with things that are going to support a healthy blood sugar and are going to support maintenance of also bone density. Again, areas where the fasting mimicking diet has shown protection of bone and also improvement in blood sugar management. And so all of those things kind of together come to offer fasting mimicking as a really great solution, not only for weight loss, but also for metabolic health, for skin health, and even for confidence. All of these areas that really, unfortunately, take a bit of a beating after even the age of 30 and certainly after the ages of 40, 50.
Wow, that's amazing. And when you talk about how the body's natural losing of muscle mass and struggling with that metabolic issue, the changes and the natural response with calorie restriction, unfortunately, makes the problem worse as our body continues to metabolize our muscles. And that is really frustrating because when we are making an effort to be better and the result is making things worse, it makes us very discouraged. I would really like to have correct information so that my efforts matter, that they make a difference, and that they're making me better. I think that's really important. Okay, you also touched on skin, and that was another thing that was brought up. It says it increases skin hydration by 25%. That's
That was even
insane.
just after 5 days, which is really incredible. So I always, with that study, like to point back to the fact that when we do these long fasts, we are activating cleanup at the cellular level. Now, our cells make up our entire system, but certainly our skin is made up entirely of cells. Our body's made up of trillions, but our skin is an external reflection of all of the wonderful good things that we do for our health and at that cellular level. So I love this study because not only does it point to the fact that we see improvements in skin hydration, fine lines, skin texture, all of those things that we notice that might be declining as we age in our skin. Those are the areas that are being targeted. And again, happening because we're working at that deep cellular level. And so if you are prompted and eager to try this 5-day fasting mimicking program, I would urge you to take a picture of your face before you start and do it again on day 6. And without fail, I have seen very noticeable differences in those two pictures, even just 5 days apart.
That sounds so exciting. And we're talking about improvements in changes in our health. And most of those changes are internal. And when we're talking at a cellular level, we can't even see the difference. We just kind of have to cross our fingers and hope that it's actually doing all the things that you're saying it's doing. But when it's my skin and especially my face, that is very external. I will see the difference and I will be able to have my own before and after picture. And that gives a lot of reassurance. We learn things and then we can listen to studies. Studies are awesome. Studies help give us confidence and courage that something is real. But until we change from research to me search, where it's, well, does this work for me? Did this make a difference for me? That's when we have a real change. And when something works for us and we know it works for us, then we continue that behavior. We continue that change because it's worth it.
Exactly. I love that you said, I've never heard that term, me search, but I will be reusing that. That is it is so true. And that is also why if anyone is doing this, yes, there are these external and visceral feelings that you will be able to notice on day 6, even just after completing 5 days. I mean, I certainly notice even just mental clarity, energy, alertness, better sleep, all of these little things that are really just personal to me and maybe not have been, studied like we do in our randomized controlled clinical studies, but are things that everybody will have kind of their own experience and change from the deep cellular cleanup that's happening. Also from your brain using ketones for energy during this fast. It's really cool what happens when we let our body and our brain especially use ketones for fuel, because it's a fuel source that we very seldomly let our brain use, because when we eat pretty much all other foods, with the exception of a ketogenic diet, but very few people are doing that today. We're giving our body enough sugar that it can use the sugar for energy and it'll never make its own ketones. And so we very seldomly get to really live in this high ketone usage state, which gives us this mental clarity and this alertness and this kind of what we call keto euphoria. So this almost euphoric state, which is really cool. So that's another thing that you might experience at the end of those 5 days. So your skin, that energy, and everybody will experience that a little bit differently, but there are some of those immediate noticeable changes. And then even if you're not doing that and or maybe measuring your weight loss, I would also urge people to go do your blood work before you start, and then do it again at the end of your first 3 cycles and see how those change too. Because as you mentioned, it really is about how it impacts you. And the beauty of fasting is that you're letting your body do the work, and your body is the most intelligent doctor. It knows where to go. It knows what to repair. And so if you let it and you kind of get out of the way and let it do its work, it's pretty incredible, all of the different verticals that it might support you.
That is amazing. And I love that you brought that up. Sometimes, and especially if we're dealing with weight loss and we're dealing with health issues, we feel like our body is our enemy. It's like, just, you are such a jerk. You don't do anything that I say. And when we back up a little bit and realize, no, our body is so intelligent, so brilliant, so amazing. It knows what you need. When we're sick, when we're struggling, when we're having symptoms, it's our body trying to let us know, I need some help. There needs to be some changes made. And when we can remember that and say, oh, okay, you're not trying to be mean to me. You're actually my friend. My body is my friend. We don't need to hate our body. We can love our body, and we can love our body through the process. I think that makes a really big difference. So as we're talking about all these things, which are mind-bogglingly awesome, is there anything else that you want to make sure that we cover before we close today? And of course, again, you can tell them how they can reach you and find out more information to experience this 5-day fasting mimicking diet for themselves.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've really only scratched the surface of the opportunity and the science even behind fasting and fasting mimicking. And I would urge you all to stay curious and ask more questions. And absolutely, find me, reach out to me. I'm happy to share more information. And you can reach me on Instagram at Fitton Nutrition. That's Fitton Nutrition. I also have a website, fittonnutrition.com. And you can also check out more on the 5-day fasting mimicking diet that is readily available all to go every single day outlined for you. It's something called Prolon for individuals who are generally healthy, and that is Prolon, Prolon, life.com. And then if you are looking to leverage fasting mimicking for a health concern, now we're generally talking metabolic health concerns, diabetes, prediabetes, hypertension, etc., then go check out L-NUTRAhealth.com. That's L-NUTRA health.com. And
Perfect.
those are all spots you can check them out.
And I will have all of those included in the show notes. So if you didn't hear and catch this, then go ahead and read it and you'll be able to catch it then. Renee, thank you. This has been delightful.
Thank you so much for having me, and I hope to have answered some questions and ideally prompted some more. So we'll connect very soon, I hope.
Thank you. In closing, I'd like to share a quote by Benjamin Franklin. He said, "The best of all medicines is resting and fasting." Today, I invite our listeners to experience the medicine of fasting or fasting mimicking for themselves. See you next time on Linda's Corner. Thanks for tuning in to Linda's Corner podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with your friends to help us inspire even more listeners. Be sure to visit hopeforhealingfoundation.org for free and affordable resources to help you overcome life's challenges. And explore healingbreathworkdetox.com, where you'll find transformative tools for deep inner healing and lasting change. Also, don't forget to check out my books, Crushed, A Journey Through Depression, and You Got This, an action plan to calm fear, anxiety, worry, and stress. Your journey to hope, healing, and happiness starts here.